Stop talking to me like that. Her voice cracked across the marble ballroom, trembling but defiant, and every crystal chandelier seemed to pause mid-shimmer. The music didn't stop. It never did for people like her, but the laughter did. The cruel, glittering laughter of women in gowns worth more than her yearly rent, of men in tailored suits who'd never known what it meant to choose between heating and eating. Before we continue, please subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Okay, let's get back to it. Sofia Moretti stood there, champagne dripping from her hair, soaking into the cheap fabric of her borrowed dress, the only dress she owned that didn't have a torn hem or a stain she couldn't wash out. The liquid was cold against her scalp, trickling down her neck, and she could smell the expensive bubbles mixing with her own humiliation. Her hands shook at her sides. She wanted to run. God. She wanted to disappear into the floor, to melt into the polished marble and never be seen again. But she wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I said stop. The woman who'd thrown the drink, Alessandra Conti, draped in emerald silk and cruelty, tossed her hair back and laughed louder. Or what, Charity Case? You'll report me to security. She stepped closer, her heels clicking like a countdown. You shouldn't even be here. This gala is for people who matter. People with names, with money, not whatever you are. Sofia's chest burned. The room was spinning, hundreds of eyes on her, dissecting her, cataloging every flaw, the crooked stitching on her dress sleeve, the scuffed shoes she'd tried to polish with petroleum jelly, the way her hair had been curled with a borrowed iron that morning, hopeful and desperate and so stupid. She'd been invited as a guest of the charity she volunteered for, a program that helped homeless youth find housing. She'd spent 3 years scrubbing floors at the community center, sorting donations, sitting with kids who had nowhere else to go, listening to their fears in the dark. She'd been so proud when the director handed her the invitation. You deserve to be celebrated too, Sofia. You've given so much. But standing here now, drenched and shaking, she realized the truth. People like her were never celebrated. They were tolerated, pitied, mocked. I'm here because I was invited, Sofia said, and she hated how small her voice sounded. I work with the foundation. You work. Alessandra's eyes glittered with malice. Sweetheart, volunteering isn't work. It's what bored housewives do between spa appointments. You're just desperate for attention, pretending to care so anyone will notice you. The women around Alessandra tittered. One of them, a blonde in diamonds that could fund a year of housing, leaned in and whispered something. They all laughed again. Sofia's nails bit into her palms. She thought of the boy she'd sat with last week, Marco, 12 years old and terrified because his mother had overdosed and child services were coming. She'd held his hand in the hospital waiting room for 6 hours, missing her shift at the diner, missing rent money she desperately needed because no one else would stay, because he'd looked at her with those wide, frightened eyes and whispered, "Please don't leave me alone." She'd told him he mattered, that someone cared, and now she stood here, being told she didn't. Alessandra, that's enough. The voice came from behind, a man's voice, low and uncertain. Sofia didn't turn. She didn't need to. She knew that voice. It had once whispered promises in the dark, had told her she was beautiful, that they'd figure things out together. Daniel, her ex-boyfriend, the reason she'd spent the last 8 months rebuilding herself from nothing. Oh, Danny. Alessandra's smile sharpened. Don't tell me you're defending her. You're the one who told us about her situation. Sofia's stomach dropped. No, she finally turned, and there he was, Daniel Greco, in a suit she couldn't afford to dry clean, standing next to Alessandra with his hand on the small of her back. Possessive, comfortable, he wouldn't meet Sofia's eyes. Danny and I have been seeing each other for months now, Alessandra purred, and he's told me such interesting stories about how you couldn't keep a job, how you were always crying about money, how he had to pay for everything because you were, what was the word you used, darling, pathetic. The room tilted. Sofia tasted bile. She'd met Daniel when she was waitressing at a cafe near the hospital where her mother had been dying. He'd seemed kind then, patient. He'd paid for her mother's prescriptions when Sofia's credit card was declined. He'd held her when she sobbed after the funeral. He'd promised her she wasn't alone. And then, 6 months after her mother's death, when Sofia was still drowning in medical debt and grief, he'd sat her down and said he needed space, that her sadness was too much, that he couldn't be with someone who couldn't move forward. 3 weeks later, she'd seen him on Instagram, smiling next to Alessandra Conti, daughter of a real estate mogul, at some rooftop party Sophia would never be invited to. She'd blocked him, deleted his number, tried to forget, but he'd told them. He'd taken her pain and turned it into gossip, into ammunition. I never, Sophia's voice broke. I never asked him for anything. I worked 2 jobs. I took care of my mother. And yet here you are, Alessandra interrupted, stepping so close Sophia could smell her perfume, something floral and suffocating. Playing dress-up at a gala you don't belong at, pretending to be someone you're not. It's embarrassing. You're embarrassing. Sophia's vision blurred. The tears were coming whether she wanted them or not. She tried to hold them back, biting the inside of her cheek until she tasted blood, but her body betrayed her. One tear slipped free, then another. The crowd was a wall of silk and judgment. No one stepped forward. No one said, "Stop, sweetheart," Alessandra said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You should really leave, before you humiliate yourself further." And Sophia almost did. She almost turned and walked out, head down, shoulders shaking, ready to disappear into the night and never come back. But then she thought of Marco again, of his small hand in hers, of the way he'd looked at her and believed, for just a moment, that someone cared. If she left now, if she let them break her, what did that teach him? What did that teach any of the kids she worked with, the ones society had already discarded? That cruelty wins. That power always wins. So instead, Sophia lifted her chin, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and said, "No." Alessandra blinked. "Excuse me?" I said no. Sophia's voice was steadier now, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. "I'm not leaving. I was invited here. I belong here just as much as you do." "You little," Alessandra. The voice cut through the room like a blade. Cold, absolute, everything stopped. The music kept playing, but the air itself seemed to freeze. Sophia felt it before she saw him. The shift in the room's energy, the way people's faces went carefully blank, the way Alessandra's sneer faltered. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. A man emerged from the crowd, and the crowd parted for him the way water parts for a ship. He was tall, taller than Sophia had realized from across the room, with dark hair swept back, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the color of storm clouds. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, and he moved with the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. He was terrifying, and he was looking directly at Alessandra. "Apologize to my woman." The words were quiet, almost gentle, but they landed like a gunshot. Sophia's breath caught. "My woman." Alessandra's face went white. Mr. Salvatore, I didn't apologize." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. There was something in his tone that made it clear. This was not a request. "I'm sorry." The words tumbled out of Alessandra's mouth, shrill and desperate. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean. Not to me." He tilted his head, and for the first time, his gaze shifted to Sophia. Gray eyes met hers, and she felt the impact in her chest. To her, Sophia couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Who was this man? Why was he? Alessandra turned to her, and the hatred in her eyes was palpable. But beneath it, there was something else. Fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Louder, the man said. "I'm sorry." Alessandra's voice cracked. He didn't respond, just stared at her until she took a step back, then another, and finally turned and fled into the crowd, Daniel stumbling after her. The room was silent. The man turned back to Sophia, and his expression softened, just slightly. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. She didn't trust her voice. "Good." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a handkerchief, and held it out to her. "For your hair." Sophia stared at the fabric, white silk, monogrammed with the initials LS, and then at him. I don't understand." "You don't need to." His voice was low, almost hypnotic. "Not yet." "Who are you?" A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Luca Salvatore." The name hit her like a freight train. Luca Salvatore. She'd heard it before, whispered in the community center, muttered by the older volunteers who crossed themselves when they passed certain streets in the city. The Salvatore family controlled half the East Coast. Drugs, gambling, protection rackets, they were ghosts in expensive suits, untouchable and ruthless. And he was their king. Sophia's legs went weak. "Why did you?" "Because no one disrespects you in front of me." His eyes held hers, unflinching. "Not anymore." "But I'm not your. You are now." The words should have terrified her. She should have run, but instead, she felt something else entirely. Safe. For the first time in years, someone had stepped between her and the world's cruelty. And God help her, she didn't know if she wanted him to let her go. If you've ever wished someone strong would step in when no one else would. If you've ever wanted to see justice for the humiliated and forgotten, then stay with this story. Because this is just the beginning. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. Luca didn't leave her side. He didn't speak much, just stood there, a silent wall of protection, while people whispered and stared. Sophia felt like she was moving through a dream. She kept expecting someone to laugh, to point out the absurdity, the poor girl with champagne in her hair, and the most dangerous man in the city acting as her personal bodyguard. But no one dared. When the event finally ended, Luca guided her outside with a hand on the small of her back, possessive but not forceful. A black car waited at the curb, sleek and expensive, the kind of vehicle that made you look away out of instinct. "I can take the bus," Sophia said weakly. Luca's look was incredulous. "No, I don't, Sophia." The way he said her name made her knees weak. "Get in the car." She should have argued, should have insisted, but her feet were aching, her dress was ruined, and she was so tired of fighting. So she got in. The interior was all leather and dark wood, the kind of luxury that felt like a different world. Luca slid in beside her, and the driver pulled away without a word. The city lights blurred past the window, neon and shadow. "Where are we going?" Sophia asked. "Somewhere safe. My apartment is a fourth-floor walk-up in a building with broken locks and a landlord who hasn't fixed the heat in 3 winters. Luca's voice was calm, factual. "You're not going back there tonight." Sophia's heart stopped. "How do you know that?" He didn't answer, just watched her with those storm-gray eyes. "Have you been following me? I've been aware of you." He leaned back, one arm draped across the seat behind her, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence like a physical weight. "There's a difference." "That's not an answer." "No," he agreed. "It's not." Sophia should have been terrified. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, had apparently been watching her, learning about her, and she hadn't noticed. But instead, she felt something else, a spark of defiance, the same fire that had made her stand up to Alessandra. "Why?" she demanded. "Why me?" Luca studied her for a long moment. Then, almost to himself, he said, "Because you stepped in." "What? 3 weeks ago, you were walking home from the community center. You saw a kid getting beaten in an alley. 3 men, baseball bats. You could have walked away, should have, but you didn't." Sophia's breath caught. She remembered. She'd been exhausted, running late for her diner shift, and she'd heard the crying. A boy, maybe 16, curled on the ground, while men in gang colors kicked him. She'd screamed at them to stop. They'd laughed. She'd called 911, put herself between the boy and the men, and gotten shoved into a dumpster for her trouble. The police had shown up. The men had scattered. The boy had disappeared before she could even ask if he was okay. "That was Nico," Luca said quietly. "My nephew." Sophia's world tilted. You didn't know. You didn't care who he was. You just saw someone in trouble." Luca's gaze was intense, almost burning. "Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Someone who helps because it's right, not because they want something? Sophia's voice cracked. "I couldn't leave him." "No," Luca said. "You couldn't." The car slowed, pulling up to a building that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Glass and steel, doorman in a crisp uniform, the kind of place where Sophia's entire apartment could fit in the lobby. "This is mine." Luca opened the door, stepped out, then offered her his hand. "Come." Sophia hesitated. This was insane. She didn't know this man. She didn't owe him anything, and yet, his hand was steady, strong, waiting. She took it. The penthouse was obscene, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, marble counters, art that probably cost more than her lifetime earnings. Sophia stood in the entryway, suddenly hyper-aware of her ruined dress, her tangled hair. "Guest room is down the hall," Luca said, shrugging off his jacket. Beneath it, his shirt was crisp white, tailored to perfection. "Bathroom stocked. There are clothes in the closet, my sister's from when she visits. They should fit." "Your sister, Isabella." A flicker of something warmth crossed his face. "She's in Milan, fashion designer. She leaves half her wardrobe here." Sophia didn't move. "Why are you doing this?" Luca turned to face her fully. In the soft light of the penthouse, He looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Because you deserve better than what they gave you tonight. You don't know me. I know enough. He crossed to her, slow and deliberate, until he was close enough that she could see the silver threading through his dark hair, the faint scar along his jaw. I know you work yourself to exhaustion for people who can't pay you. I know you gave up your scholarship to NYU to take care of your dying mother. I know you haven't bought yourself anything new in 8 months because every dollar goes to paying off medical debt. Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. Stop. I know, he continued, his voice dropping to something almost tender, that you sat with a scared boy in a hospital for 6 hours last week because no one else would. I know you're stronger than you think, and I know, he reached up, tucking a strand of champagne-sticky hair behind her ear, that you've been invisible for too long. The touch was electric. Sophia's breath hitched. I'm dangerous, Sophia, Luca said quietly. I'm not a good man, but I protect what's mine, and starting tonight, you're mine to protect. I'm not. Yes, he said, you are. He said it like a vow, like a claim. And God help her, Sophia didn't argue. She woke the next morning in a bed softer than clouds, sunlight streaming through windows she hadn't bothered to curtain. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The Gala, Alessandra, Luca's quiet command. Apologize to my woman. Sophia sat up, heart racing. She was wearing borrowed silk pajamas, her ruined dress folded neatly on a chair. Luca had left a note on the nightstand. Coffee in the kitchen. Don't leave without talking to me. She should have left, should have snuck out, gone back to her life, pretended last night was a fever dream, but her feet carried her to the kitchen anyway. Luca was there, standing at the counter in dark slacks and a white shirt rolled to his elbows. He was making espresso, moving with the kind of easy confidence that made Sophia's stomach flutter. Good morning, he said without turning around. How did you? I always know when someone enters a room. He poured 2 cups, slid one across the counter to her. Survival instinct. Sophia took the cup, inhaling the rich scent. I should go. Why? Because she gestured helplessly. This isn't real. You can't just claim someone. I didn't claim you, Sophia. I protected you. There's a difference. Is there? Luca's eyes met hers, and the intensity there stole her breath. Yes, a claim would mean you couldn't leave. Protection means I'll keep you safe, whether you stay or go. And if I want to leave? He was silent for a long moment. Then I'll have my driver take you home, but I'll still make sure no one hurts you. From a distance, if that's what you want. Sophia's chest tightened. Why? Because 3 weeks ago, you stepped between my nephew and 3 men who would have killed him. You didn't know who he was, didn't care, you just acted. Luca's voice was rough, almost reverent. Do you know what that's worth in my world? Selflessness? It's not. It's everything. He moved around the counter, and suddenly he was too close, his presence overwhelming. I've spent my entire life surrounded by people who only act out of self-interest, loyalty bought with money, or fear. But you, he reached up, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. You gave your time, your safety, for a stranger. You're either the bravest or most foolish woman I've ever met. Both, probably, Sophia whispered. A smile ghosted across his lips. Probably. They stood there, the city stretching out behind them, and Sophia felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. This man, this dangerous, ruthless man, was looking at her like she was something precious, breakable, like she mattered. I have to go to work, she said, though she didn't move. Call in sick. I can't afford. I'll cover it. At her look, he added, not as payment, as protection. Daniel Greco's family has connections. Alessandra's father owns half the restaurants in the city. They'll try to make you pay for last night. Fear spiked through her. What do you mean? I mean, Luca said quietly, that people like them don't forgive humiliation. And we humiliated them publicly. I didn't do anything. You stood up to them. That's enough. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Stay here today. Let me make sure you're safe. I can't hide forever. Not forever, he agreed. Just until I've made it clear that touching you means answering to me. Sophia should have been horrified, should have run from this beautiful, deadly man who spoke of violence like it was nothing. But instead she felt something else. Relief. For years she'd fought alone, struggled alone, bled alone, and now someone was offering to fight for her. Okay, she whispered, one day. Luca's smile was small, private. One day, but they both knew it was a lie. She spent the day in his penthouse, watching the city from 40 stories up. Luca left mid-morning. Business, he said, and she didn't ask what that meant, but he left his number, told her to call if she needed anything. 2 men in dark suits appeared at the door, silent and watchful. Guards, she realized. He'd left her with guards. It should have felt like a prison. Instead, it felt like the first full breath she'd taken in years. She called the diner, told them she was sick. Her manager was curt, annoyed, but didn't argue. Then she called the community center. Sophia, the director sounded relieved. I heard about last night. Are you okay? I'm fine, Sophia lied. Good, because we have a problem. Her stomach sank. What kind of problem? Conti Real Estate just pulled their funding. All of it. The housing program, the after-school initiative, everything. They said we no longer align with their philanthropic values. Sophia closed her eyes. Alessandra, of course. How much time do we have? She asked. 3 months. After that, we'll have to start cutting programs, maybe close entirely. 20 kids would be back on the streets. 20 kids who'd finally found somewhere safe. I'll fix it, Sophia said. Sophia, you can't. I'll fix it. She hung up before the director could argue. When Luca returned that evening, Sophia was pacing the living room, fury radiating off her in waves. They pulled the funding, she said without preamble. The Contis. They're shutting down the center. Luca set down his briefcase, his expression unreadable. I know. You know? Assandra's father called me this afternoon, wanted to smooth things over. I declined. So you just what? Let them destroy everything? No. Luca's voice was dangerously calm. I bought the center. Sophia froze. You what? I bought the building, the programs, everything. As of 3 hours ago, the Rossi Youth Foundation is funded entirely by Salvatore Holdings. He crossed to her, catching her hand when she tried to step back. They can't touch it now. You can't just. I can. His eyes held hers. And I did, because that place matters to you, which means it matters to me. Sophia's anger drained away, replaced by something overwhelming. Why are you doing this? Because you're under my protection now. That means your fights are my fights. His grip tightened, and anyone who hurts you answers to me. I'm not weak. I know you're not. If you were weak, you'd have run last night. You'd have apologized to Alessandra. You'd have let them break you. Luca pulled her closer, until she could feel his heartbeat. But you didn't. You stood there and told them no. Do you know how rare that is? How extraordinary? Sophia's eyes burned. I'm not extraordinary. I'm just everything, he finished. You're everything they're not. Brave, compassionate, real. You don't know me. Then let me. His forehead touched hers, and the intimacy of it stole her breath. Let me know you, Sophia. Let me protect you. Let me. He stopped, swallowed hard. When he spoke again, his voice was raw. Let me be the one who stands between you and the world. And Sophia, exhausted and overwhelmed and so tired of being alone, whispered, okay. The weeks that followed were a fever dream. Luca kept his word. Sophia was untouchable now. The diner suddenly gave her better shifts, better tips. Her landlord magically found the money to fix the heat. Strangers on the street stepped aside, eyes averted when she passed. She knew why. She'd seen the men in dark suits watching from corners, had heard the whispers, Salvatore's woman, don't touch. It should have felt wrong. Instead, it felt like finally, someone saw her as worth protecting. But there was a cost. Luca's world was dark. She learned that fast. He disappeared for days at a time, came back with shadows in his eyes and blood on his knuckles. He never told her where he went, and she didn't ask. But she saw the news, the arrests, the accidents, the way powerful men suddenly fell from grace. Do you ever regret it? She asked one night, curled next to him on the penthouse couch. They'd been watching old movies, his arm around her shoulders, and it had felt so normal she'd almost forgotten who he was. Regret what? This life, the violence, She gestured helplessly. Everything. Luca was quiet for a long time. Then, every day, Sophia's breath caught. But I can't leave, he continued. The Salvatore family is an empire. If I walk away, it collapses. And the people who depend on us, the ones we protect, the neighborhoods we keep safe from worse monsters, they fall with it. You're not a monster. Yes, he said simply. I am. But maybe. He looked at her, and his eyes were ancient, weary. Maybe you make me want to be less of one. Sophia reached up, cupping his scarred jaw. You saved me. No, Tesoro. His hand covered hers. You saved me first. And then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, like he was afraid she'd pull away. But Sophia leaned in, and the kiss deepened, became something desperate and claiming. Luca's hands tangled in her hair, and she gasped against his mouth, feeling the world tilt and spin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca pressed his forehead to hers. From this moment, he whispered, no one touches you. You're mine. And Sophia, lost in his storm-gray eyes, whispered back, I know, because she was, and God help them both, she always would be.